Welcome, everyone, to the Clocking Out Podcast, a show about people who share their own personal journey that include making bold choices to clock out of situations to follow their dreams of career fulfillment and to live their best, most authentic lives. I am your host, Raymond Lee, and this podcast could not be possible without the support of Career Minds. Today, I am incredibly excited to welcome Tammi Marks. Tammi is the owner of Beauty Marks Aesthetics, a company that she launched over a year ago after being let go by her previous organization, Common Spirit. Previous to starting her company, Tammi worked as a registered nurse and later moved into informatics as the healthcare industry transitioned from paper to electronic charting. This experience proved to be invaluable, aligning perfectly with her career aspirations, which ultimately set her up for success in her business. Tammi shares her candid experience with being laid off that can be an example for everyone. So without further ado, please enjoy Tammi Marks and her clocking out story. Tammi, welcome to the podcast. It's nice to see you.
Hi, good afternoon. Great to see you as well.
Yeah, I am so excited about our conversation today. And I'm so glad you reached out. I was researching your background and was looking at the work that you're doing today. And I'm really excited to share your clocking out story. I find it completely remarkable of where you began and where you are today. So just super excited to dig in.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's a transition for sure. So I'm ready to dive in and share my story.
Awesome. Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah.
So what the listeners love is a good origin story. And what I'd love for you to do is just take us to the beginning. You know, where did Tammi grow up? Tell us about home and maybe a little bit about what your parents did, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So yes, I grew up in Idaho and haven't left. I love Idaho. It's beautiful. So if you haven't had a chance to get out here, come on out and visit. I grew up with two siblings in the house, two older sisters. So I was the youngest, the baby. I have two parents who were married almost 60 years before they both passed away, but they were a huge staple in my life. I came from a father who had nine brothers and sisters and a mom who had a brother. And so we had a lot of cousins in our family. And I was the first one in my family to actually go to college and graduate college. So that was super important to me. And my parents were a very big staple in helping support me through that further education that I needed and wanted, yearned for. At first, though, I will say, started out with my dad was in the Navy, and he was in the Navy for 10 years. And it made me think when I was a senior in high school, maybe that's what I wanted to do. My dad, I looked up to him. He was a mentor for me. He was super smart, and he really just inspired me to do a lot of different things, be authentic, do my own thing. And so I thought, well, I wonder what the Navy would be like. So I decided to go down to a recruiter's office with my mom, and it was awesome to hear, but I decided it just wasn't for me. And I wanted to still do the university route and get through there. But
so Tammi, you mentioned your dad was in the Navy. And the one thing that I wonder is, you mentioned going to the recruiter's office, and I wonder if there was any influence from him into you going into the military, or did you really have a desire to want to potentially go down that path?
I did. I didn't mention my mom was also in the Navy. She was in there as well. So they both came from the Navy. Yeah, I would say for sure I was influenced just because I have several uncles that were also in the Navy. I can't really pinpoint, it was so long ago, but I think I had a different idea in mind for where I wanted to be, say 5 years from now or whatnot. And I didn't feel like I wanted to go that path because I wanted to somewhat stay local. I guess where I went to college was still 8 hours south of where I lived. But I think it's just, I had a different path in mind, more of a career path than staying in a service oriented career. A little bit.
So when was the moment when you really decided what your career was going to look like, and what was that feeling, and what was that sort of career that you decided this is what I want to be?
That's a great question. Gosh, I never knew what I wanted to be. Even the second year in college, I was like, oof, what am I going to do with this? I took a lot of generals, and I did head down the healthcare pathway. It did take me 5 years to get through college, just because I needed to take a couple extra classes on where I needed to be and maybe repeat a couple classes. So I think I would probably say maybe my third year in college, I went and declared a health information management undergrad degree so I can go. And I was working in the hospital at the time already at an entry-level position. And I just loved being in that atmosphere, helping people. I was working in the ER at the time. As I was going through my days, going through months of doing this, and then finally years, when I hit the 5th year of doing this, I thought, you know what? I'm collaborating with physicians, collaborating with nurses. And I thought, what an awesome opportunity to go take some clinical. And I am a lifelong learner. I'm constantly like growth, but also building on the ladder of making sure it makes sense in building my career, not just falling back and trying something new, but building on that. So 5 years in, I decided, oh, I'm going to go to nursing school. So that's where I went into, headed down that path into nursing school, was just being around those people that inspired me to do better and to do something different than just, seeing how the data was collected. I wanted to be in that, taking care of the patients and whatnot.
So you worked in the hospital for over a decade now. When was the moment when you decided that you were going to get into more of a kind of a corporate setting in terms of the work that you were doing?
So back around 10, 12 years ago, the hospitals around here were starting to transition from paper charting into electronic charting. About a year prior to that, I had also got the nudge, the yearning for more education. And so at that time, I can't even tell you if it's once you master something, you just feel like you are on autopilot and you want more. I don't know if I hit that pinnacle of that in my nursing career, but I was really wanting to do something different and just strive for more. So I went back to school and got my master's degree in computers. In that journey of my master's degree, the hospital I was working for was transitioning to this project, this huge project of implementing the computer systems. And so for the ORs, the surgeries where I worked, my director, she was amazing. She believed in me from beginning to end, and we're still friends to this day, that she asked me to run this project for all of the ORs. And she knew she was supporting my education and my transition into something more into informatics. And so I'm like, yes, absolutely, 100%. I'm so excited. And so that was a journey where I got pulled out of clinical and into running this project. And it was awesome. It was the best experience I had, learning how to run projects, work in teams, and also it supplemented my education. I got to not only just learn in theory, but I got to learn by doing as well. And so it aligned perfectly with my program. And so then once I graduated and once the project went live, then I turned around and supported it for a couple of years as well within the hospital that I worked at. And then it was time to transition out and see the big world of what informatics was doing on the outside of just my Boise hometown. I wanted to see what other hospitals are doing, what does it look like from a larger standpoint. And that's when I decided to, tackle my fear and get out of my comfort zone and go do some consulting doing the same exact thing, but do it for other hospitals.
That's interesting. So you were working in clinical, and there was an opportunity with the company, and you stayed with the company, but you expanded your role to move into more of a technical role where you were tapped for this project, and you sort of got the experience internal, and then hit a point and you said to yourself, I'm ready to expand even further. And that's when you did you proactively start looking for new opportunities?
I did. I will say that the facility came to me because they were growing themselves as a health system locally and wanted me to pursue doing this and be a part of the project moving forward for the other hospitals in the area. But I will be fully transparent and honest. When I was looking into this and just said, went to them and just said, okay, let's look at salary. I'm graduated now. I'm looking for more. And when they weren't interested in me moving forward with increasing my salary, that's really the tipping point on, okay, totally fine with that. But I really I knew my value was more than just where I was at. And I had experience now. And so that's when I just started being proactive. And it didn't take long because at that point in time, there were a lot of hospitals and health systems moving to electronic charting at that time. And so I just happened to land on one that was incredible, a good opportunity for me.
So you gave the company the opportunity to sort of realign your experience and the value that you were adding to, kind of the work that you were doing. And there was no alignment there, and there was still misalignment. So you kind of took it upon yourself to put yourself out there and start looking at new opportunities.
Yeah. And it was scary. It was scary not only because I was leaving basically my comfort zone where my home hospital where I had worked for, 2 decades almost, to I was newly divorced. I had 2 young little kids at home, and 3 little kids at home, but at the time I had just started a new relationship too, through it all, and had a lot of support from my parents. Even though they didn't live in the area where I lived, they came down. When I say came down, they drove 8 hours to help support me through the transition of, I may be traveling, I may be having to be away from home for a few days during this consulting opportunities that I had. And so it was scary. It was really scary to just jump and leap and go forward.
So I want to go back for a moment. When you were working in clinical as an RN and you were doing that for some period of time, what led you to recognizing that you wanted to go back and get more education? Like, I think that's so many people who hit hit a fork in the road where they're doing some job or a career for some period of time. And then at some point, going back to school is tough, right? Like, it's not necessarily, I think of myself, I went to undergrad and then went right to grad school. Yeah. But to start in a career and do it for some period of time where you're now earning, a decent salary, and then you decide, I'm going to go back to school to pursue further education to create more opportunity. Where did the motivation come from for you to pursue that?
Such a great question. I think I just have this inner fire in me that just wants more. When I become at a certain level, when I can do a role or position and do it quite well, and when I go to work and I'm doing the best job I can, and there's always opportunity to know more, learn more, or get a promotion. But when you feel like you have, I don't want to say the pinnacle because I'm not perfect, but when you reach that top level and you're like, there's something more in me. And I just felt like there was just more to be done, more to be had. I wanted the next level in my education. I wanted that master's degree. I wanted that doctorate degree, although I'm not there yet, but I wanted just to keep going. And I think just having the yearning to want to do more just made me want to switch gears, pivot 180 and just go for it. And it aligned with where healthcare was going in the future. So I think I was always on that cusp of the next thing where I could see healthcare going. I read a lot of journals. I read a lot of books. I just always was trying to stay on top of the news with healthcare. And so I figured, you know what, this is where healthcare is going. It's going electronic, turning to informatics. That's where I want to help people next. So I wanted to transition again out of clinical this time, so to speak, back into an IT role. And it was great. It was fantastic. I can't say enough about one person who, during the transition from leaving my company to my next career opportunity, the person who picked me from a consulting firm who interviewed me back in 2012 is still a really close friend of mine. But his name is Michael Maitre. He inspired me throughout the transition period of me leaving to going to this new company to working for him. I just can't. I've been so lucky to have leaders that have really inspired my growth. If you've never had an opportunity to have a leader that is really has your back, I've had 3 really good ones. And I just am so lucky and blessed that I never had a bad opportunity with a bad leader.
I love that story. I mean, there's so many life lessons there that you just articulated. One being that you recognize that there were skills. You recognize that the industry was evolving. And in order for you to create opportunities for yourself, you needed to acquire education that was going to help provide the opportunity for you to continue to grow in your field. So, Tammi, the other life lesson that I love is how you had a mentor who recognized your potential. And, you're someone who has a lot of goals and you're looking to grow. And I can only imagine how this one particular mentor just recognized your potential and they were willing to support you through your growth and provide you with just a ton of support and opportunity. And so I just love that story. So you pursued this informatics master's degree and you expanded your role in the healthcare organization that you were working for. And then you got to a point where you peaked out and it was time for you to make a change. And so you put your resume out there and you took a job in a consulting role, right? That was in a new company. Did you have to relocate? What did that look like?
Yeah. So I put my resume out there. I got hired by a consulting firm that got the bid or got hired by this corporate hospital health system. And they were looking to implement their 34 hospitals with an electronic charting system as well. And so that to me was a great opportunity. I did not have to relocate. which was great. I didn't want to relocate. But at the same time, there were a lot of companies and health systems taking this electronic charting system on, and they realized in this world today or 10 years ago that people aren't going to relocate. You can do this job remotely. That was even before COVID. You can work remotely and still get the job done. Yet we still needed to travel to on-site hospitals to get them up and going. So there was travel involved. So I did have to compromise. And there was about 50% travel involved. And I decided, with the support of my family, who were a big part of my decision, that I will take this job. I'll take the opportunity and make it work. And I learned that taking risks like that really propel your career, if it was your career, or taking risks in anything, saying yes, being the yes person. That just opens up so many opportunities and doors for you that you just, it's so valuable, right? That experience is super valuable. And
I love that. So I was just thinking back for a moment, and you made this comment about taking risks and not being afraid to take risks. And I think within, I'm going to say the corporate world, but within various industries and job functions, I think a lot of people are hesitant to take risks. They're afraid to put themselves out there in the fear that, that it's not going to work out or they're going to fail. And I just wonder, for you, were there moments where you felt like you were apprehensive in taking a risk because you were uncertain around what the outcome was going to be?
Sure, I do. I mean, I have had multiple other opportunities to go elsewhere, but I think if you trust the universe and your gut on what direction you need to go, and I think that's really it, is I've always kind of been led by these weird universe pulls, and just kind of leaned into that and what felt right to me. And if something didn't feel right, then yes, I had the apprehension of moving forward with an opportunity. I've had a few of those. And it's so odd to think about where you would be today if you said no to an opportunity, or if you changed your mind and didn't go with this decision. It's crazy to think about where your life would be. So I think just trusting the process, trusting where your decisions are, making an educated decision, yet also just going with it if it feels right, just gives you that you get to see where you're going to be in the future. I mean, I don't know. It's led me to where I am today. That's for sure.
Well, I love that intuition that you have. And I can only imagine that your education and experience in being a registered nurse, where your whole job is around connecting with people. And I think that your intuition has really allowed you to grow. So now you're working in a full-time consulting role. I wonder, when was the moment when you realized that you were an entrepreneur and you were going to start a new company, which is completely different from the work that you were really trained to do? When was the moment that you realized that?
I would have to say I had the opportunity around 7 years ago to do what I'm doing today, because I transitioned into something completely new. But the timing wasn't right, and we didn't move forward. And what I'm alluding to is where I am today. I had the same opportunity to do aesthetics 7 years ago. But going back to what you said, when something wasn't right or apprehension, the timing just wasn't right on that. So I just brushed it aside. So then about 2 years ago, I don't know. I think something just in me, maybe that, again, burning desire of something challenging. I think I may need something just always challenging, was sitting right there in front of me, just like, okay, so you need something challenging. And I will tell you that I haven't mentioned to you before is I'm also like this juice guru. I love to like make juice, do juicing and just make concoctions and all of that. So at one time, a couple years ago, 2 years ago, during COVID, I said to my husband, we should open a juice bar. Wouldn't that be so much fun? Let's open a juice bar. I always take my hobbies and turn them into, let's have a coffee shop, or let's do a juice bar, or maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. So I'm always constantly, I think that's that entrepreneur mindset that we have, is always like, okay, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. So I've always just had that in me for some reason. I was actually sitting in my niece's chair. She does hair. She owns her own hair beauty place. And then she's like, well, why don't you do Botox and fillers? And at the time, and I'm sitting there, and at that same moment, and she's like, and you can call it Beauty Marks, Marks being my last name. And I'm like, oh, that's so clever. And I left there thinking, gosh, she's so right. I could just build on my nursing, get back into clinical and build on my nursing. Why start something new from scratch, like a juice bar? Why not just build on what I currently have? That just makes the most sense.
So there's so many things to unpack here. I just love that you give yourself the space to sort of think about different careers. Like you and your husband owning a juice bar, starting a juice bar together. And you just gave yourself space to imagine opportunities and things that you would really be motivated to do. And I love how you arrive back in a place of helping people. And at the core, I mean, it's really how you started your career. You almost were called to a field where you're helping people. And so I love the process that you went through in thinking through that. And it sounds like when you were in the corporate role, your role was changing in a place that you really just weren't motivated to do that work anymore. You know, you went back and got your master's degree. You were focusing on IT and systems. The healthcare industry was transitioning to be more digital and online with regards to records. And so you pursued that. And so it sounds like in your last role, the epiphany that you had was that it's time for me to start thinking about something else. And hey, you tapped into your community. You're sitting in your niece's chair, having your hair done, and you are sharing what you're interested in. And so, what a great story. So, what was the moment? Did you leave the company? What ended up happening?
Yeah. So with the merger, they had taken some time to evaluate what the structure would look like, what the infrastructure of the organization would look like. And over the last 3 years of this redesign, and then redesign and layoffs, and redesign and layoffs, with changing processes and then changing direction in which the vision of the company was going, there just was a lot of layoffs. And it wasn't until just this last January where I thought I was just they really wanted us to do more with less, right? They wanted us to, with healthcare getting a huge hit during COVID, they needed to recover and change and pivot with their business strategies. And so having experienced and listening to stories of other people who got laid off, I was still working with my director, and we still had teams to manage and get through this. So in January, I thought they had some more redesign and structure changes. And I thought, and same with my director, we thought, well, we're going to be getting another team. What does that look like? Let's start to rethink what our teams are going to look like. And so adding more people to us to manage and lead. And so when I got on a call, it wasn't adding more teams. It was, hey, thank you for your service. Today's your last day. And I was really shocked that, that would happen and the reason I think I was shocked that I got laid off, I think it was more in the fact that I've had exceptional reviews every year. And I just never really got a good reason why that they let us go. But I mean, I have an assumption, but I don't necessarily need to share it. But all I can say is thank you to this company that originally I was super mad. Going back to that space, I was really upset. I was really mad. I was really felt rejected. I felt like, man, I thought I was doing a great job for them. I felt rejected. I put 10 or 12 years into this company where I thought we were growing and whatnot. I felt rejected and disappointed and sad. That took about a week. And then I'm like, all right, now what's next? And so, yeah, that's what led me to Career Minds, actually. I'm thankful that Common Spirit Health had taken this benefit and put it into their health, to their benefits, to offer that to people who experienced this, who went through this layoff. So I was given Career Minds and a career coach and resume writing, and they helped me with LinkedIn. I thought, awesome. This is great. I will just get back on the horse. I'll figure out what else is out there. And so, yeah, I worked 8 straight weeks with an amazing career coach. Thank you for that. He was awesome. However, as I'm going through the motions, I just kept getting rejected. I thought it would happen easier than it did. I don't know if it was a timing thing where other people in the IT industry were getting laid off, having a tough time finding jobs, or if it was the universe telling me, you know what, this is your opportunity to do something totally different. Why don't you take it? And so I had a lot of time to think, and grateful I had the time and the severance to think. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to have the resources to do that. And it gave me time to really think about, what do I want the next 10 years of my life to look like? And, when you say connections are really big for me. And so connections were really big for my career coach as well. And so he really influenced me to get into networking. And it was not out of my comfort zone to go network. I'm a people person. I love to be around people. I'm extroverted, so I love to talk to people. And so I did my homework and went to a couple networking functions with him, for him, and came back and told him my experiences. And then also met, he happened to be local, and I met with him, and he introduced me to this one gal who's very similar to me, very entrepreneurial mindset. She's a go-getter. And just to keep a long story short, she mentioned, you know what, why don't you do your part-time gig full-time? Why are you searching for something in the same thing you've been doing for years? You can make just as much money. You get to be around people. You get to help people, feel really good about themselves. And so I thought about it. I went home and thought about it. I'm like, she is so right. Ditch corporate, go solo. And so I won't say that it hasn't been hard, because it has. It's scary at 52, and you're transitioning to a whole new career. That adversity of starting over is hard, because when you're so used to being good at what you do, and now you're back in nursing school or you're back at starting an orientation, it just feels, it's hard. But I also embraced it because I love education, and I went and got certified in the aesthetics, and I went and signed up for all of these classes and courses, and it's just been one positive thing after another. And I think I'll let you pause and see if you have any other questions around that, because I did kind of give you a lot to think about.
Oh, Tammi, I love that story. I appreciate you sharing the impact that you went into this meeting thinking that you were going to be having a conversation about expanding the team, and you were sort of blindsided with the fact that your job was being eliminated. And I can only imagine how the shock of that at that moment had really just cut you to the core, because here you are, someone in a field that you were just working really hard for over a decade, and it was over. And while the outcome of that was fantastic, as we sit here today, at the moment, you're sort of, that really does hit you. It hits your ego. It bruises your self-esteem, your confidence. And I think anyone who at any point in their career is told that we don't want you anymore, and it's time for Tammi Marks to go into a different path, when it's not on your own, on your own time frame, your own timeline, and someone else is telling you that it's time, it's hard. And so I appreciate you sharing that story. And I love how you gave yourself space to really internalize all of that. You said it took a week. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it could take shorter, but you gave yourself space for that. And then you started networking and having conversations with people. And it ultimately led you to recognizing that it's time for me to make another pivot. You started in clinical, you went into corporate, focusing on IT, and now the universe was actually doing you a favor.
Crazy, huh?
It's so crazy. And so I really appreciate you sharing a lot of details related to that, because I think anyone who's listening, who's faced with that kind of situation, can walk away feeling inspired that when one door closes, another door opens. You don't know what the other door that opened is going to lead to. But you mentioned earlier, you have to trust the process. You have to be willing to be vulnerable, be open to what the universe has in store for you. And it was through that process that you found Beauty Marks.
Exactly. Yes, it was definitely a trust factor in that believing in myself that I can do this. Two, I am a risk taker. So I'm like, why not? What else do I have to lose? I've applied at hundreds and hundreds of jobs, from LinkedIn to Indeed, from the leaders that I still keep in touch with, the 3 that are super influential in my life. I reached out to all of them. I got advice from each of the people I seek the most support from, and they saw the skills that I had that I forgot I had, and they knew my grit, my tenacity, that there's no room for failure. I can do this. Failure is not an option. I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn. I'm going to do it at my own time. And giving myself time is super important, I think, too, because I'm one that wanted that G-force to accelerate like crazy and be good. It's almost like when you go play golf and you've only golfed a couple times and you want to be super good at golf, but it takes years and consistency to be really good at golf. That's what I wanted to be in this job right away. I wanted to be super, super good. Why can't I be super good? I mean, come on. But no, it takes practice. It takes 10,000 hours worth of practice to just get to hone in on the skills. This is a new skill set. This is new. But I think what my mentors resurfaced for me is I've got the skill in education. I've got the history and the experience in other things. It's just a skill that I can learn, just like any other skill. Putting a Foley catheter in a patient that's in the OR, you can learn it. It's the other things, your personality. Your people gravitate towards people because of their positiveness, their personality, and how they treat people.
I love that. So Tammi, tell me about Beauty Marks.
Beauty Marks. So the name just really hit me when my niece recommended Beauty Marks, because my last name Marks, and beauty being in the beauty industry. But also my youngest child, she's 16 now, but she basically was born with a beauty mark here. So she has a beauty mark. So she's really like the face of Beauty Marks. But Beauty Marks is something that it's so incredible to have the feeling that you get to create something yourself. I have no boss that's telling me what I need to do. So I'm pretty hard on myself because I want to get stuff done in a certain way. And sometimes I have paralysis by analysis a lot. But also that's limiting because you just have to just do it. I mean, Nike was so good. Just do it. You just have to get out there and just do it. Put your feet out there, jump in, just do it, get going, figure it out as you go. And I think that's the hardest part. But the most important part that I learned is just to go. With Beauty Marks, there's a lot I wanted to just grow with it, but I had to start. Fortunately, I started this part-time gig before I was laid off, which gave me the foundation. I started it just as a part-time mobile. Let's do some Botox on people mobily, concierge type thing. And then when I jumped into this full time, it just so happened I got to be in a beautiful spa place where I can have a room here and then grow it and educate myself and just take it one step at a time and educate it. So Beauty Marks is really around my whole mission, I guess I would say, and vision of Beauty Marks is making sure I educate people, because I have that. It's surprising how many people come in here and they just get injected and they've had them done multiple times, say Botox. But I sit and spend at least 20 minutes with people talking through the muscles, what every muscle does. And then, hey, what kind of skincare? And then it just leads into one thing after another. And then they're coming back for another treatment. So it's just around education, I think, and connecting and making people feel seen, heard, and yeah, that's what. And then just one day at a time, you're just growing organically, which is really good.
Yeah, I love that, Tammi. It's more than aesthetics company, but you really are connecting with people about who they are as a person and what's important to them, and how's the treatment going to evolve them as a person. And so I love how you articulated that. And I just wonder if, like you were just saying, just do it. And it's a mantra that it sounds like you live by. And for those who are listening that are in a place where they're not fulfilled in the work that they're doing, or they're faced with a transition where they're in job search and their intuition is telling them to just do it, do you have any words of advice for them?
Definitely. Always say yes. Just do it. Just say yes and figure it out as you go. Obviously, if you're thinking about it, then you've had a lot of thought into it already, subconsciously.
Yes.
Because if you're actually voicing it out, you know you've been internally thinking about it for a very long time. And you can make it work. And so that's what I would say is just do it. Just why be stuck in a career that you are unhappy with, one, or if you're forced, like me in my situation, to make some changes. Life is about being happy, and it's short. And I've realized that over the last year with some personal things that have happened to me. And so I think just realizing that, in the moment, it's not about making money. It's not about, a title or a role that you need to have or attain. It's intrinsic. Nobody can take away my education, my dreams, my goals. They'll just fall into place, and you'll have a tribe that believes in you.
I love that. And your Just Do It mantra really started from the beginning. And it sounds like your advice is to follow your thoughts, follow your intuition. And even at such an early age, I can't help but think that when you walked into that recruiting office for the Navy, you were just doing it. Like you said to yourself, I am going to uncover this rock, and I'm going to explore. This is an opportunity. And I think the life lesson is that if you don't put yourself out there and sort of expose yourself to opportunities, they may work, they may not work, but it sounds like throughout your entire career, you were just doing it. And I'm so happy to hear that you've landed on something that is just so fulfilling. I feel like you're just like really living your best life now. And I'm just so happy for your success and where you are in your career. I think it's just remarkable.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I look back on that, and if I would have said no, which there was a half a second where I wanted to say to my career coach, no, I can't make it to this networking event. It was something my husband was invited to. He didn't want to go. He just wanted to stay home. If I would have not gone, I would have never met my friend Robin, who said, why don't you do this full time? Why don't you do your part-time gig full time? I would have never met her. I would have never had that opportunity for somebody to tell me, move forward with what you're doing right now. Just put more energy into it. So if I would have said no to that or just stayed home, my life would look so different than it is today. So taking those opportunities to think about and then really say yes to the ones that feel good, I think are really important. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So Tammi, what's the best way people can find you?
So you can find me on Instagram or my website, beautymarksaesthetics.com, Beauty Marks Aesthetics on Instagram, and on Facebook as well. And I think I sent you those, so you have those handles. And
awesome. Well, thank you so
much. Or
much.
LinkedIn. And I'm on LinkedIn all the time too. So
awesome. So thank you so much for joining. I just love hearing your story. I love hearing the journey that you went from clinical to corporate to being in aesthetics. It's so incredibly inspiring. And so just, again, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure meeting with you and getting to know you a bit better. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks everyone for listening. Until next time. Hello, Raymond again here. Thank you again to our sponsor, Career Minds, a global provider of outplacement and career development services. If you'd like to connect with me about your own personal journey, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, as well as find me on Instagram at raymondlee.co. Until next time, remember, if you're stuck or unsure of your career or future, and you think it's time for a change, ask yourself these 3 questions. Does my career or work make me feel alive? Am I doing the things that matter to me most? And am I creating value for myself and for others? Until next time,